We are live. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Deep breath. I am nervous for this one. I'm so incredibly nervous. I know there are so many of you who are joining live and watching the recording, and this is such a major, big, mega topic. And it is a dream come true to get to have this conversation in this way because I so wish that there was someone who went live sharing their very genuine, real, honest story from beginning to now. So I could just hear someone else's point of view and perspective and where they're at and understand my own journey a little bit more clearly. So, welcome if you're joining live. Thank you for the sweet chat. So if you are new to a Substack Live, it is a little different than Zoom. I can't see you. I just see that there's a number who've joined viewing live, and then I can see some of my live folks in the chat. And if you're watching this later, you're just going to see me. So it's just me. So you can do your day, whatever you got to do, and just listen to this like a podcast. Or if you want to watch it, you prop your little phone up. And we are going to begin in just a moment. So I am live in my house upstate. So if you hear my dog Raver come on, or you hear my husband stomping, things happen, doorbells ring. We're just going to roll with it all. So so excited for this. I am so excited for this too. I've not been this nervous to go live in a really long time. And let's just all start with, remember I said we were going to have a wellness component as a part of everything. Let's just all take a big collective breath together. So just kind of shake it out a little bit, and then we're going to breathe gently and slowly in and gently and slowly out. Get it all out. Let's do two more like that, because let's just keep going. Breathing slowly in and slowly out. Slowly and gently in and slowly and gently out. Good. We're here now and we're ready. We're as ready as we'll ever be. So I do have lots of notes for today. There's so many twists and turns in this timeline. So if I look a little bit to the left, it's because I'm just checking that I've included everything, and I will do my best to show up and share and remember what I can, because memory and brain fog is such a big part of this story. So, and if you are jumping in for part of it or, have to go, all good. We will have a recording for you and you can catch it later. So, official start and welcome. I'm Robyn Youkilis. I am a wellness expert for 18 years now, two-time best-selling published author. I lead retreats, corporate speaking, keynote speaking. I have a retreat coming up at Kripalu this August 28th. You can just check me out on the website. And I am now the host of this brand new show streaming here on Substack called This Is Who I Am Now, all about owning the shit out of who you are at every stage of life and really being in that moment. And it's a great title to lead us to today's topic, which is kind of my early to mid 40s journey, specifically around hormone therapy and perimenopause and what I've experienced. And yes, peptides. And yes, that includes a GLP-1 and everything that I have to share about, again, my story, my journey in this very specific and nuanced way. And so when I went to take all my notes for this, I realized I want to keep our live to about 30 minutes max. And this is definitely going to be a two-parter, if not a three-parter, probably with a Q&A in there. I will do my absolute best to, have a flow here that we can all follow. And I think it's really worth not rushing through it and trying to deliver perfect little sound bites. I think it's worth me taking the time to explain the details and what was happening, what was really happening, because I think that's where the nuance is really where the magic and the deep understanding is. Because what my previous understanding of perimenopause was, it wasn't nuanced. I didn't understand it in the gray area, and so I didn't know what to do about it. And this is kind of the conversation that I wish someone had had with me about how confusing it can be and different one day to the other and one moment to the next. And if I had understood it on that deeper level, I might have gotten stronger help so much sooner. And so I also want to say that I am not a medical professional. I am not a doctor. My training is as a health coach, as well as many other certifications. And I will give you resources and share what happened with my traditional, gynecologist visit and where I ended up. Um, so, yes, this is not medical advice. Again, here, just sharing my specific story because the context is really important. And this is not a everyone should go on hormone therapy conversation. This is not an everyone should take a GLP-1. And this is certainly not a that went wrong. I fixed it, and here we are now. Yay. My story is still really unfolding in very real time. And so this is a continuous journey, and part of why I opened the gates on a weekly live show is so I can continue to bring you into this conversation and we can have it together in real time. If you're just joining live, welcome. I'm Robyn Youkilis. I'm a wellness coach of 18 years, and I'm going to be sharing about my story with, my own journey through perimenopause and hormone therapy and all the peptides and all the conversations that I wish I'd had and symptoms and everything in between. And I will do my best to handle all of this with as much grace and care as I can. So, I also want to say, I was scared to have this conversation. Like, I think part of the reason why I didn't get help sooner is denial. I'm 46 now. I'll be 47 in October, and I really felt such a tremendous decline at 43. I joke that 43 was my last good year. And because I felt such a dramatic shift in that year between 43 and 44. And, at 43, whatever it is that fuels 43, I certainly didn't feel it, certainly didn't look it, still don't feel whatever ages with that number. This has so dramatically shifted. And I love looking at those memes of what someone in their 40s looked like in the 80s because I certainly didn't see any images of what you're seeing right now and probably what your friends around you are looking like, and certainly not what you're feeling like. And it's just a very dated visual. And so the way that we connect our age to what it should look like that is all just burning down as it should. And it will continue to do so. And I'm so happy that that's happening because I remember someone in the wellness space when they had turned 50, and I think I was, I don't know, 39 at the time. How much of a different, I don't want to use the word how old. It's like even that I don't want to give power to. I just thought what a different life moment that person must be in than I am. BS, right? And we're probably going to think it at 60 and think it at 70, God willing at 80 and 90 and so on. And so but I do think that is part of why we don't seek help at a certain age, and because it's part of the denial of something and the push away of something, and that's part of this too. It's us wanting to shed that together as well. And so that's part of the reason. And I like to share my age and where I'm at and be very honest about that. I also want to give some context. I work in wellness, and my specialty is more around gut health and gut intuition and how those things are connected, and leading guided meditations and just really living my life very out loud. And so I am not a hormonal expert. I have a lot of friends who specialize in this, and I will share some of their resources in the wellness space. But hormones and your period and your cycles and where these different stages of life is not my specialty. So a lot of this, or most of this, was actually learned as well as I went. But again, I'm here to share my story and how I navigated through all of this. So because I think for me, I always know my experience is where the gold is, right? That's what we're here to connect around. So some quick context around perimenopause. What is perimenopause, right? Like this to me is like, this is not a word I knew 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. I thought, let's say perimenopause is the transition period leading up to menopause. It can happen for about 6 years, typically in early mid 40s into 50, early 50s. Again, this is general data. People can be completely different. I have a dear, dear friend who had 0 symptoms until she was 50. God bless. It's all different for everyone. And then menopause is actually just a specific moment in time that marks when you have not menstruated, had a period for a 12-month period. So people say, I'm in menopause. You're actually in perimenopause. And then you're in menopause the one day that marks the 12-month cycle. And then you are post-menopausal after that. And so I knew menopause, okay, this thing that could happen around 50 and you get hot flashes and everybody makes jokes about you sweating and needing to turn the air conditioning way up. But I'd never heard the word perimenopause. And I also want to say that in now knowing it and understanding it better, we also want to be really mindful to not just raise a hand and a yellow card. Very into football right now, the World Cup game. Raise a yellow card every time we're like, well, that's me too. That's me too. Understanding your body and slowing down enough to hear what's happening with you and what is coming from you and then seeking the resources is a really critical part of this, which, everything I teach always comes back to intuition and what your body is telling you. And that is going to be your guiding light in all of this. And I understand that the world is very noisy and very loud, and we have a lot in the palm of our hands, and a lot of it can be really helpful. And a lot of it can just be a lot of noise. So, my biggest takeaway in all of this is to pause and to take a deep breath like we did at the beginning, maybe even three, and see what's for you. Where do you want to dig in a little more? And where do you want to just say, I'll come back to that later? Not everything needs your immediate attention right now. And so perimenopause, it's a period of time where our hormones can fluctuate quite a bit. And this can cause a lot of other things to happen in our bodies, in our brains, in our spirits, right? It's a big transition time and it's a long ass time. Periods can change, but they don't have to disappear. That confused the heck out of me. You can still get your period in perimenopause. I do. And it's often, like I said, in our 40s, but can be in your late 30s. And there's a lot of data emerging now about hormone support in your late 30s and some supplementation support to, not have it be something that we have to course correct so dramatically. I thought perimenopause looked like hot flashes constantly, night sweats, period disappearing, and this dramatic shutdown. You know, so much so to the point where it was really funny when my perimenopause symptoms started to really become unmanageable for me. And that was like I said, in a 3-year period when I turned 46. So much so to the point where I went to the acupuncturist, and I go to acupuncture a lot. I love acupuncture. I'm a big, big fan. And I said to her, I'm like, here's my symptoms. It sounds like I'm deep in perimenopause. I was like, can you make this stop? Like, can you stop what's happening? Like, I'm not ready for perimenopause. I'm not ready for this. I'm still young and fun and doing all these crazy, silly things. I have 2 DJs to see this weekend. Can you just put the needles in the points where we can just be like, no, thank you. We'll come back to you later. Maybe there's a better time at a future date. And, she was very sweet, my practitioner. She's like, no, first of all, you can't put this back in a bottle. And, what I can do is support your symptoms. I can support your body through this process. So perhaps it's a little gentler on you. But like every transition in life, you can't stop a waterfall. Like this is life and this is how it's happening. And so maybe if we can connect like this more often every week and we can giggle about it a little bit more together and, it doesn't have to be this meme we make fun of, this visual that we make fun of. It can just be a part of our life and it can have a looseness to it and a lot more ease. I didn't understand that it could look like brain fog. I'd only heard about brain fog as it related to autoimmune disorders and autoimmune symptoms. I didn't understand that the anxiety piece of it, that again, these are all could happen, might happen. Do not just say me to all of them. Slow yourself down, take some notes, go through your process. But anxiety, and I'm someone who suffered from a lot of panic attacks, but this anxiety was different. Sleep changes. I'm someone who suffered from insomnia. I was always a night owl. I would wake up in the middle of the night, and I remember in the hallway, playing with my Little Ponies by the nightlight. And my mom would find me sleeping in all sorts of different places, like in a different corner of my room or on the floor in the nightlight, with my dolls. I've always been a night walker, as I call myself. But it was a different kind of insomnia. I'd wake up for hours and hours. Like I just didn't understand that that could be a part of it. And I'm weaving in my symptoms with a general symptom list. I'll go more specifically into my symptoms, but let me just read off like what the could look like list is: brain fog, sleep changes, anxiety, mood changes, irritability, rage, energy changes, period changes, vaginal and sexual changes, body changes, and with an often overwhelming theme of the phrase, I just don't feel like myself. I just don't feel like myself. And for someone who works in wellness with a lot of built-in wellness practices that I have, really strong muscles around, um, I couldn't wellness my way through it or out of it. And again, not every woman has this experience and not every woman needs HRT, but here we are. So let me skim a little bit for me. Okay, so between 43 and 44 for me is when and I want to say this. I didn't know how bad it was and how intense my symptoms were until they all got better when I went on hormones, supplemented with hormones. So I want to say that everything I'm sharing with you of my experience as I was walking through it, I was completely, I don't want to say talking myself out of it, but like just, it's like how we, if, if you have a baby, you get pregnant and you go through pregnancy, it's like the tummy grows little by little by little by little by little. And you're like, by month 10, you don't recognize yourself. Um, and it was the same for this. It was like it grew and grew and grew and grew. And even then, until there was like a baby in my arms, I was like, oh, that's what all this change was about. Until I was able to dramatically support my hormones in what they were going through. Um, I didn't, I could only then look back with the hindsight of, oh my God. Um, so I will say for my experience and my list of symptoms, it was moods, energy, as I said, sleep. But I know my body really well. And I know what normal stress and too much travel can look like. This was different. And when I often tell people, so my one of my biggest stories that I say, so this was different. So basically this just increased in velocity and speed and volume over a few years. And where it came to a peak was a weekend where I led so I was at Kripalu in 2019. So Kripalu is a yoga retreat center. So I led some retreats there. I led one in 2019 and I went back this past fall in November. And I was supposed to be leading this in full weekend. So it's Friday night, Saturday, Sunday. And then now, as I mentioned before, I'm going to be teaching there again this August. Join me. We can hang IRL and laugh about all of this together. Um, so I was leading the retreat November 7th, and it was the opening talk that Friday night. And I could not get through anything I was trying to say, meaning my brain fog was so strong, I couldn't remember not only just the story I was telling, um, the teachables that I wanted to weave in, I could not remember basic words. And I joke about it like I could not remember the word for road. Like I was like, the thing cars drive on and you cross the street, the chicken cross that, it was like that. And that's just one example, but they were firing constantly. And I'm someone, I've been leading live coaching calls. I was on Zoom for 6 years prior to the pandemic. It's now been 6 years since the pandemic. So this is 12 years of showing up and leading live, plus Zoom, other various forms besides Zoom. So this is something that is a really strong skill for me. I can show up and I can teach, right? I always typically have some loose, light notes, but I can do this dang thing. This is what I'm really good at. And it was gone. And this is obviously a dramatic story. What ended up happening was I needed to stay up all night. I got no sleep that weekend. I needed to stay up all night typing up everything that I wanted to say because I could not trust myself to get through, let alone a paragraph, a sentence. And the next morning, I typed out the morning session, sat there, read it through, let people know what was going on because here we are. This is who I am now in this moment. And yes, the retreat is called This Is Who I Am Now, as I'm humbly learning and observing in every moment of every day. And and then at lunch break, I worked and typed up the afternoon session and so on. And so this was a very dramatic example of this brain fog, but this was happening, I would say, pretty much every hour of my existence is I wasn't remembering really important things. And it's funny how we often have a knee-jerk reaction when somebody shares something like that to say, "Oh, well, me too," or "We all forget things," or "Yeah," or "We all have too many tabs open." All of that is true. I know when I have too many tabs open, and I know what perimenopause, now that I have the name for it, I now know what perimenopausal, excuse me, brain fog feels like. It's just gone. It's more like this is what I say. When I have too many tabs open and it's my usual overwhelm, because life is really overwhelming, it's kind of like if you take a puzzle and you take all the pieces and you shake them up and you look in a bowl and it's the puzzle all mixed up. That's what regular overwhelm or too many thoughts or too many tabs. I can look in there and I could see all the puzzle pieces. And I may not know where they go, but I can see, oh, that's my daughter was just doing a Minnie Mouse puzzle. So I'm like, that's Minnie's, foot, and that's Daffy Duck's cute little hat she's wearing. I can see all the pieces, and I can't necessarily go like create the puzzle in my mind, but I can see how the parts could work together. They're little, little pieces. Anyways, for me, when I have perimenopausal brain fog, it's like the pieces aren't even in the bowl. The pieces to the puzzle are gone. Or there's just a few of them. It's like this evaporation. And there's a documentary. I'll share this in the resources. But one of the women said she went to go check into a hotel and she couldn't remember her name. Like I completely relate to that. I didn't get to the point where I couldn't remember my name, but it felt like that. And so that was the brain fog that I was experiencing. Additionally, night sweats. So a few times a week, I would get severe night sweats. So it felt like this electricity that would start in my feet and just rumble an electrical circuit all through my body. It would wake me up. I wouldn't be able to go back to sleep. I'd often have to change my pajamas in the night. Again, and then you'd start to spiral with the other things that were connecting, what's happening to my body, what's happening to me, etc. Um, Another huge piece is, and I'm going to skim through a little bit more of this, and I'll put more of these details in a write up with this episode, so you have some more complete notes. And another piece was energy. So what I call a complete energy collapse. So I was exhausted all the time, not just busy mom tired. I know busy mom tired. I'm 46. I have a 10-year-old and a 5-year-old. But this was looking like, okay, I could not handle 6 p.m. bedtime. Like I wouldn't just pass out with them in the bed. I would pass out on the floor while they were putting their pajamas on. And then 6 p.m. became 5 p.m. where I couldn't even like get myself to the dinner table often. And then 5 p.m. became 4 p.m. And then 3 p.m. was around this fall when everything hit. If I wasn't getting my work done by 3 p.m., I just couldn't function. I felt like a walking zombie. And then coming back to the sleep, aside from the night sweats during the night. I've always been a bad sleeper, as I said, but I was going from 6 to 7 hours to 5 hours a night. And then I was having some weeks where it was like 3 or 4. And 3 or 4 hours of sleep leading up to a retreat that I was leading up to a work trip in LA in November. And this is also all part of my complete breakdown. I also should mention that my normal sleep support, supplementation, and aids and habits were not working. So not being on a phone, cool, dark bedroom, all the things, herbal supplementation that I was taking, or even experimenting with melatonin. I was taking small amounts of melatonin as needed, and then the milligrams would go up, and eventually like 10 to 15, which is you're not supposed to take that, and I don't recommend it. But like it would do nothing. Like imagine 10 to 15 milligrams of melatonin doing absolutely nothing. Nothing was working the same as it used to work before. And then my least favorite, not that I have a favorite, could you imagine? My least favorite symptom was rage. And the word irritability, as you see in like the, list of possible symptoms, just does not capture it. I wrote this through. It's like normally with kids, they can do X and then I'm upset. And typically, something happens in your home life. And when I'm in a grounded, resourced, solid place where my perimenopausal symptoms aren't flaring up like crazy, my hormones aren't going like this, I typically, like I said, on a good day, have a second where I can manage my feelings. I can decide the path that I want to go down. And at my peak perimenopause symptoms, no decision of intention could ever be involved. I was all fire and flames and electricity, and there was just never a moment to understand the moment. No, and again, this is a very like high way to think of this, right? You might say, well, I don't have that on a good day. Again, there's that knee jerk reaction of everything needing to be so extreme. Doesn't always need to be so extreme, you know, but I know that even, let's say, on a non-resource day, there's still a difference. There's still like, when you look at a flame and it's a beautiful rolling fire flame, and then you can see a part of a flame sometimes that turns blue, and that's where the densest part of the fire is being created. Everything was blue, right? Everything. And there was no taking a deep breath. There was no removing myself from the situation. It was just immediately to rage. And rage, not only that would just come out of my mouth in the words that I spoke and in the thoughts that I would think, but I could feel this like hatred in my body as one of my worst symptoms. Like I just felt like I am so angry and mad. And I want to just put it out anywhere I can, and getting it down in a journal or going for a walk or run or bringing it to my workout. None of those places were supporting that, releasing and flowing and moving through me. Again, I just didn't feel like me. So me on a good day or me on a bad day or me even on a terrible day. And the funny thing through all this is, I have talked with other folks, and other folks, as far as symptoms go, absolutely. Let's say if my symptoms, I would say, got to a place of being an 8. I've talked to folks who have had a 10. I've talked to folks who've had symptoms at a 2, 3, 4. I still thought I was fine. I don't necessarily, what I want to share about this is there is so much nuance. I don't think you're necessarily fine at a 2, 3, 4, right? Um, I still was like, I have good days. I could still work and travel and parent and lead and be myself sometimes. And, I had a good friend say, you need to get on HRT. And at the time, it just sounded like, well, I'm not in complete shutdown. It sounded like this really dramatic thing that I was really scared of. Hormones, take hormones. I remember at some point I connected with my mom. I love my mom, but like she was fed a lot of the original research that is, most of it has now been disproven about the connection between hormone therapy and cancer. And I'm not telling you hormones are the way to go and hormone therapy is the way to go. There are side effects. It is a really challenging path to navigate. But what I am saying to you is, here's my story, and this might be something for you to investigate so you don't keep white knuckling your way through it, telling yourself, I'm fine, while your life kind of breaks down around you. And while you're robbed of your sleep and your joy, and to know that you don't have to be in complete shutdown. This, definitely connects to a deeper conversation with women white knuckling our way through it and the I'm fine. And, you know, that's a big, big, big conversation. And for sure more to explore around that. But for today, trying to keep it to this story. Um, because I wasn't fine. And even though I was fine some days, we deserve better. We deserve better. We deserve to feel great and to really, have the opportunity to enjoy our lives through these years where our hormones are fluctuating so much. And hormone therapy, like I said, sounded really scary to me. My mom again was trying to help. Like, I took wild yam and black cohosh and tried that. Try that, and I did try that for 3 years, which was a really long time. And I think definitely way too long. I was trying to wellness my way out of it. I thought if I meditate more, if I journal more, if I walk more, phone less, right? Like the onus of this, of fixing this is all on me. And if I'm just a better wellness girly, these things will get better. X effort equals X output. And in life, that's often not true, and especially in perimenopause and menopause and anything when it comes to our hormones, it's just not true. And it's just not true for so many things, right? Autoimmune and other disorders and gut health and gut mobility. There's so much here And this is just one piece, right, of our well-being puzzle. But it's just funny that I thought, like, if it's very me, and I'm sure it's very a lot of us. If I just do more, I've talked about this on my Substack. If I could do one more thing, I should. If I can, incorporate one more wellness practice, then this will get better. And I did that. Like I said, had a really good run. And, for me, it got to a point where it wasn't about trying harder, being more disciplined, more, patient, or thinking I need to get my shit together. Like, that sucked. Like, putting all of that weight on myself. And I want to say, like, I had the time and the resources to do all this. I'm absolutely speaking to you from a place of financial and time privilege. And I had all of this to work on this. And I still couldn't wellness my way out of it, and I want to own that for sure. Um, and how many women are out there white knuckling it because they don't know that there might be another conversation that they can start having. Okay, so I want to say I also did in my exam, not at 46, not when it got so bad, but when I started to, like, I would say at 45, when I started to feel like this is feeling extra, I did try to get help during my regular gynecological annual exam. I mentioned my symptoms, and they told me I needed to come back on a specific day in my cycle for testing. And I tried to line up that day, but my period was a bit erratic. So getting the appointment at the right day with kids' schedule, with my travel schedule, with my work schedule, it just didn't happen. Months went by, and honestly, eventually I gave up, and I was not ignoring my health. But again, that between, like, I'm fine and, okay, this just seems like the only medical possibility for me and it doesn't seem to be happening. The practical pathway at that point didn't work for my actual life. And so that brings us to, well, I want to say one more piece around that. Oh, we'll get into that later. Okay, so I just want to do a little time check that we've been live for 30 minutes. So I'm going to keep going to bring you through when I started the hormone therapy, and then we will move the next to a part 2 conversation. And I also want to say I'm not trying to just, like, you know, drag this out, but I do think these details really matter, and we have time. I'm not going anywhere. We have time. And I want to share this in a way that feels digestible and inspires you to explore your pathway in your life and your symptoms that you might be having, or maybe this is down the road for you and you can just say, okay, cool. Like, I'm more aware now, and awareness is empowerment. And so that is my only promise in each of these live shows that I'll be doing for sure. But I'm not going anywhere, and I will continue to share the story until you have all the details through the entire timeline. But thank you for being here live, for those of you who are live, and watching the video if you're catching this later. So, okay. So that does bring us to November, which I say was my rock bottom in my perimenopausal journey. That's when I had, thank you so much. That's when I had my retreat at Kripalu. I had a week-long trip to Los Angeles. I hosted my family for Thanksgiving. We went to a restaurant, but I hosted everyone before and after. And it was just a lot. And I was not sleeping. And I had a vacation coming up in December. And I was, wanted to feel good for that trip and look good. And, I'm not going to lie and say vanity wasn't a part of it. And of course, I was drowning in my life and my workouts. I couldn't get my workouts in the way I normally would. I wasn't feeling balanced. I wasn't sleeping. And it was just all such an intense, hot mess. And coming out of that retreat weekend is when I knew I really needed help. And so that is when I started asking around. I was doctors were in my awareness. A place like Parsley Health is wonderful. They were in my awareness, but I never had a moment where I was like, okay, make the phone call. And so I was talking with my sister-in-law, who is a dermatologist in Tribeca, and I was like, it's time. Like, I have to do something about this. I have to get more answers. And so she recommended Dr. Molly McBride, Slan, am I saying that right? NYC. Again, we will share all the resources in a post from this live and future lives. And we're going to be patient. We're going to spend the month shaking this all out together. So I called her office. I made an appointment. So Dr. Molly McBride had a traditional gynecological practice, and then left that and started a concierge for women's and men's, actually, health and hormones. So she could really target support for women exactly and men exactly like me. And so my sister-in-law said a lot of her patients went to this person, a medical concierge. I'd never worked with a medical concierge. I was like, how much is this going to cost? Sounded so scary. And the HRT thing, everything sounded so scary to me to the point where I wasn't doing anything about it till it got so bad. So here we are. So I was really scared, but I trusted my sister. Um, and I trusted someone who's been a gynecologist for her entire career and saw a need for something like this so she could more directly and more quickly help people. And so I made the appointment and I went to her office and told her everything. And mind you, this was the first time that I'd sat there. So again, so this was mid-November. This was the first time I sat there and talked about everything that I was going through in one moment, in one place, at one time. Not just like little broken conversations with my college, group chat of like, are you experiencing rage? Do you hate your husband? Are you going through this? It was always just these little pieces and bits, but it had never been like full download, kind of like I am with you now. And mind you, it's July now. So I've needed quite some time to process this experience before I felt ready to share this with all of you. I haven't really shared any of this until now on social media or in my newsletter. I actually just shut down my entire traditional newsletter that I'd had for 17 and a half years because I needed to go in and really support myself and really process this because it is, like I said, so nuanced and there's so many layers and it's so deep. Um, as I was sharing earlier, that connection between age and getting older and, you know, value, and there was just so much there. And so I told her everything. And then, of course, I don't think I got through the second sentence before I was crying my eyes out. Um, and she was so sweet and so incredible. And she's like, we're going to make this better. She said, we're going to make this better. And I said to her, I just didn't think there was a better. Deep breath with that. Let's take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. So she ran my labs to check my levels, my FS1, um, and my vitamin levels to see where I was at with all of it, what her recommendations were, and what her prescriptions were for me. And mind you, I'm someone I've never had prescriptions. Like I literally am not even joking. When she gave me my prescriptions, I'll get into it for just a few more minutes, and then we'll close and we'll have a part two next week. Maybe later in the week. I don't know. We'll see. I don't think I can wait a whole week to get into part two. Um, so um, oh, this is a great question. So Lindsay said, does perimenopause affect vitamin levels? No. So she was just checking my vitamin levels and my lab so we could have a full picture of the symptoms that I was having and account what it could be from. So, a lot of women are really low in magnesium, which can have a whole host of symptoms and how that shows. A lot of women are really low in iron, so that can also. So the labs for the vitamin levels was to have the whole picture because she wasn't necessarily just saying right out of the gate, hormones are the answer. She's like, I need all the information that I can get. And then we can decide. And hormones, yes, ended up being supplementing with hormones, not supplementing, prescribing hormone therapy was a part of it. Focusing on some targeted supplementation was a part of it. And there's, even more there. Here. So magnesium, vitamin D, ferritin, yes, can be in the toilet and nothing to do with perimenopause, right? That's just a general, where are you at with your health? And, what's the full picture here? And that is what she does cover in her practice. And really something all women need. That's why an integrated practice like Parsley or working with my doctor is so important. And if there is, you don't have the resources to go to a practice like that, finding them online and finding these communities of places where they do focus on this exact information. So you can see what's going on. And no, there isn't an easy answer here. We just learned this word 3 years ago, 2 years ago, right? So we're certainly not where we're going to be 10 years from now with this. And it is up to us to walk this path together and figure it out. It just is. And we can get angry about the research and angry about I cannot believe perimenopause was not an automatic conversation in my pregnancies. I had my first pregnancy at 36, my second one at 41. that there was no bigger hormonal conversation there, that there wasn't a bigger conversation about my nutrient levels and what my body needed and needs and continues to need, right? We are having this conversation together in real time. And I honor and respect that it's complicated and often expensive, and there isn't an easy path forward. That doesn't mean there isn't a path forward and that we won't get there, and that part of getting there is sharing these conversations together and these resources. And when this video goes onto my feed, sharing your experience in the comments, sharing what's worked for you. I am just one woman with one story, and just knowing like it's okay. It's new. This is new, and we are paving a new path together. And hopefully, my daughters will have a much easier time navigating this time. And so for me, in my labs, my vitamin D was extremely low. Everything else actually looked pretty good. Like I said, wellness practitioner here for a long time, so I generally know how to navigate that, but I was not taking high enough levels of vitamin D. So that was one place I needed to supplement. And then did start hormone therapy. She said I was kind of right at the start of what showed up as perimenopausal on my labs, and that was my FS1 level. And so she started me on an estrogen gel at a very low dose. So these were what I started with: an estrogen gel, a very low dose. So that was 0.1%. And then we did progesterone in a tablet, which was 100, or I think it's like a round pill, 100 milligrams every night. And then we actually did add in testosterone cream, but that came a few months later. And then we did end up adding in a couple of days later a low dose of a GLP-1. So blanking on the name of what I take. That's hilarious. Zepbound, 2.5 milligrams. And so I should also very strongly mention the GLP-1 was a parallel conversation, which we will get into, to the hormone perimenopause conversation. Definitely connections. But my reasons for going on the GLP-1 was largely around my diastasis recti, which is my abdominal separation, and what I needed to do to keep that in check. And everything that was happening with my hormones, which was causing dramatic shifts in my body as well. And so I will share more about that. But basically, that's what she and I came up with together. And a couple more things, and then we'll close for today. So it's a gel that I would rub in different places in the morning and a tablet that I would take at night. Um, the GLP-1 conversation will start, we'll add that in after, because again, that's its giant own conversation. We have a friend who said HRT and low dose GLP-1 was life-changing. We're breaking all the cycles here. I was on birth control pill forever, which threw me into early peri when I got off. It's a journey for sure. And Lindsay said, I can listen to you talk all day. So I'm going to talk about, and Allie asked, how quickly did you notice feeling better? Yeah. No, I'm loving this conversation, but I want to be mindful of everyone's, listening time and attention span. So maybe we will do the part 2 in a couple of days, and then we could do a part 3 next week. Because like I said, I'm not going anywhere. My show is This Is Who I Am Now, live streaming on Substack. It's not going anywhere. And as you can see, I could talk about this all day too, but I really didn't want this to be a masterclass or a Zoom. I wanted to have this in this real-time unfolding, not perfect, not performed, not preached conversation. I wanted to just be here with you, sharing the parts. But I also want to be really mindful of all the pieces and how they weave together. And so, we can jump with that. Great. Did you have breast tenderness with the estrogen gel? I don't think I had breast tenderness with the estrogen gel, but I'm going to also include a Q&A call. So for those of you who are subscribed, after we do parts 1, 2, and 3, I'm going to also add in just a straightforward Q&A call where everybody can ask their questions there. Okay. So what I want to say is how I want to wrap this piece is, so because there's even more, because there's also a sleep aid that got put in there for sure, for me. But we'll cover that in part 2. So here's what happened. So I was on um, the hormone therapy, um, and about 6 days into it, so I started it on, I think it was a Wednesday, and then the crazy thing is that I wanna end on is I woke up on Monday, I kid you not, I sat up in bed, and it was this overwhelming feeling of, like, "What is this?" And it was happy. Like, I woke up feeling happy, and it was so dramatic, the feeling, that I started crying. Like, I had tears. I was like, "Oh my god." I literally wo happy, happy. I just woke up. I woke up happy, like, out of nowhere. That I didn't need to have something good happen or be on vacation or all the things that I was doing, striving, reaching for to have a result of something that could make me happy, right? Not like looking for, exterior factors, but like, could I raise my vibration high enough to feel joyful? And I couldn't, I'm telling you, 3 years had gone by in my mind that I had not woken up feeling happy. And that was 6 days into my treatment plan, which is wild. And that's when I realized that moment I of how rough it was for me. And I wept for myself. I wept for how long I spent not having access to this organic, natural feeling of being happy. Like, I wept for myself. I'm like, I cannot believe I went so long not getting to feel like this without having to do anything. And it was just the most incredible feeling. I can still remember it now. Um, Certainly not so happy 24/7 all the time, right? Life is still lifing, but just that feeling of easeful joy. Thank you. Someone said so happy for you. It was incredible and truly life-changing. And it affected, so over time, so many more things got better as well, pausing before yelling at my kids, not hating my husband as much. Just kidding. No, I'm joking. I love my husband. Marriage is tricky though, y'all. He and I are both two fiery redheads. So, but just that, like, just again, we're not going for like, here I am a Zen Buddha master. But we're really going for this, like, can I just drop in a little bit, feel a little bit more ease, can I calm the fire and the flames just a little bit? Can I pause? Can I just, do I get back the power of a decision? Do I want to go to attend here, or do I want to choose a different path? I felt like I got the power to make a decision for myself again. And things felt better. They felt calmer, lighter, nicer. My night sweats did go away. So many amazing things happened. And what do I want to say here? I want to check the comments. Someone said, it's so hard when there's such a dissonance between who you are and the rage that you feel during this time. During this time, I also started therapy. And it was really helpful for me to hear from her. Yes, at 46 years old, I started therapy for the first time. It was really helpful for me to hear from her, you are not your rage. You are not your perimenopause symptom. This is a symptom. This is an expression of something going on with your body. This is a moment. It is not, who you are. I was like, yes, this is not who you are. Um, so yeah, so for me, I started to feel dramatically better within a week. And then it definitely continued just a couple weeks after that, that most of my symptoms had gone away. I still will say I had moments where I felt low or a lower energy. And that is why we brought in the testosterone um, and some other things. And I worked with some other supplements that I brought into the picture to help with more of the symptoms and acupuncture. There was a lot going on there. But I did feel dramatically better. And my doctor did say, um, I thought it would take months and months. And then she said, you'd be surprised. It could work pretty quickly. And it did work pretty quickly with me. And so I'm getting a lot of questions around what I used and all that. So I'm going to put that in the write-up for this post. And like I said, we will have a Q&A to go over everything because there are so many questions about this. And like I said, I'm not even necessarily the best person for these questions. I will give you some resources of some friends that I have in the industry that do focus fully and wholly on this. My experience is more from, being a mama, a life lover, and a wellness professional, and just sharing, here's my story, and how I navigated through it with my wellness practices being a priority for me. So, a little teaser of what's coming next is yes, we did end up adding in a GLP-1 low dose as well. And I'm going to share about my diastasis journey and everything that I did to heal that, from physical therapy to lasers to all these different things, and how nothing worked, and spent so much money and was so frustrated for a year and a half that I worked on that I was getting to the point where I was going to get surgery, a really dramatic and very expensive surgery with a really long recovery period. I was at that point and called my doctor crying about that. And we will share more about that next week. I told you about the GLP-1 in this, but I'm going to dive more into it next week because, like I said, it's impossible for us to jam this all in one conversation. This could be a 4-hour workshop, which we can talk more deeply about this too at Kripalu in August as well. If you are curious about Kripalu in August and you want to be in person with me, Brooklyn is my support gal. You can drop the link in for the live chat and we'll post it in the post as well. But this isn't me saying like, you have to join us. There is no upsell here, folks. It's just we want to hang out more together. Great. And so I will be sharing more about GLP-1 journey. And then I'm also going to share where I've evolved around my hormone therapy, because I am currently on a pause from taking hormones, because after, how many months was that? December, January, February, March. I do count on my fingers. So about 4 months, I started having some side effects from the hormones, nothing crazy, but to the point where I was like, I want to explore other paths. So what was really cool was taking the hormones in this way gave me, I got myself that I was feeling so much better that I had an opportunity to explore additional alternatives, whereas I was in such flame and fire that wasn't a possibility for me at the time. Eastern medicine is gentler, subtler, takes longer. Western medicine, it's like taking 3 Advil for a really bad headache. It's gonna come in with a hammer, which sometimes we need a hammer. And I'm not saying hormones do that necessarily, right? I chose a lower, gentler path. And I do want to say what she prescribed me and the ways that I took it was her suggestion. So that's where I say go to your medical provider. Some people do a patch, a cream, all different dosages. And I do want to say, a lot of folks that I've connected with in DMs and messages. If you're not following me on Instagram, Brooklyn, can you put in my Instagram handle here as well? Make sure you're following me there because I have a lot of chats in the DMs as well. I have folks that say they've tried hormone therapy and it didn't work for them. And I feel I did get very lucky that I had a very dramatic life, significant life change very, very quickly. That's not the case for everyone. And if I've said anything throughout this entire chat, this is nuanced and work that is ever changing. Like I said, where I'm at now is I have paused my hormone treatment. And again, none of that's so scary. It's just, this is ever evolving and changing. Just like the way you woke up feeling today is likely not the way you woke up feeling yesterday or the way you went to sleep. We are constantly changing and evolving, and our hormones are following suit as they are meant to do. And so thinking back to my hilarious moment with the acupuncturist where I was like, can you just stop this, please? Where she was like, no, we cannot stop any of this, but we can support you and your body through this transition. And it is called a transition. I don't like the word transition. Makes me think of transition lenses, which I've been wearing glasses since 2nd grade. And I went to try those once and I was like, these are terrible. I don't want them telling me when I want things shaded all the time. So, during this time of our lives, during this chapter of owning who we are in, every season of our lives. So, on that, I'm going to close. So that will be part 2. We'll get more into the GLP-1, more about, and I'm going to share about the nuance around a bit around diet culture, my history with diet culture and my body, and um, what brought me to the place where my doctor thought it was best that we pause, and where I've taken that now, and now the supplement support and life changes that I have brought in as well. So I'm going to be sharing that more in part 2. We'll see what we get to. And like I said, I want us to have the time to really dig in. And we did end up going up to an hour basically, which I should have known because, it's a very, very big conversation. And so for the questions I'm getting, yes, curious, the plan for how long you'll be on the GLP-1, I will cover that. Someone said, thank you so much at 41 with all this starting, hearing your experience really helps. I'm so glad. Yeah, I wish there were more of it. It's a scary, it shouldn't be so scary. We also had some chat messages of this doctor's of this or not. Everybody has, not everybody, a lot of people have very strong opinions when it comes to women and their bodies and the health and care and support that we seek, right? Some people would say Advil is poison, right? And only go to something like willow bark. We can make space for all of it, right? We contain multitudes and multiple things can be true at once. And what happened for me in my experience may not happen for you, and vice versa. But I don't want any of what those knee-jerk reactions do or what our mind can negate to stop us from having these conversations. We need to talk about this. We need to put this together and build it together. So that is what we're doing here together at This Is Who I Am Now. Deep breath. So I think we're going to close there. I want to say thank you to everyone who was able to join live today. If you're watching the recording, let me know what resonated with you. I know you're probably going to have so many questions. I want you to write them down for yourself, and hopefully I will get overwhelmed with questions. Like I said, I'm not an expert, and I want to, I'm trying to be intentionally of sharing the parts of my story before I dive into of the questions. And I think it's a good practice for you to say, okay, I can breathe with this for myself and I can be patient and write down these questions and, seek them for myself, or, get into them when we get into the question and answer part. I am the biggest student. I'm always like, okay, what's the to do? What's the to do? And sometimes the to do is just taking it in and being with it and writing your notes and, writing down where you want to explore and what sounds like it was for you, and just being with that for a minute before we rush to the solution or the answer or the edit. That is a lot of undoing and rewiring that I'm doing with myself. So yeah. So someone said, I would love to hear about what Eastern medicine you're using now. Can't wait for Q&A. Yeah. So where I'm at now, I'm going to be sharing in part 2 or 3. And then I will have a separate Q&A as well, where it can just literally just be in the chat. You can just do questions and answers. I also, as a request, my show is new. It's called This Is Who I Am Now on Substack. Please share with your friends. If you have someone that you think that this would help, please send it to them. Subscribing shows that you support. I end up in your inbox. And of course, if you can become a paid subscriber, that is also amazing. There's going to be more information that I'm going to be sharing with paid subscribers. This is my business. This is my work. This is how I get to show up and do more. So much of it will be free, absolutely free for all. And some of it, will be under a paid option. So if you're not currently a paid subscriber, you can think about upgrading your subscription. And then I also have something called Robyn's Rock Stars, and that's also going to include some live additional calls and additional handbooks and guides and more fun surprises along the way. We did it. Scary, but doing scary things is really good for you. I've always been like a 1, 2, 3 jump kind of girl. So here we are being 1, 2, 3 jump kind of girls together. All right. Thank you all for hearing me. Thank you for your kindness and your grace and your understanding, and for your time. Our time is precious, and I hope that this supported you in some way. You're very welcome to those in the live chat. And like I said, please, the comments on this, I'm really excited to read them, and liking and sharing all really helps others receive this. So at 59 seconds, we are complete. Blowing you a big kiss and a hug. And thank you again. And thank you to myself for walking this path and showing up and sharing it because this is some scary ass shit. Okay. Farewell, everyone. Bye.